Hello, welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot for November 20th. So, survived another week. Okay, I know already, your Thanksgiving isn't until next Thursday, okay? I was entertained by, frankly, the number of people who felt the need to correct me. So, moving on. I'm really getting concerned about what's going on in the United States in terms of this transition. And I know on Monday I did a reading on the transition. I want to revisit that. I want to take a look at it actually from Trump's perspective, because this is the thing that I have to tell you kind of confuses me. When I read for him, I read that he's like in a rage, he's angry, he's confused, he's lashing out. I still think all that's true. But it's starting to come to light that he is sort of a very strategic player behind the scenes in terms of contacting people who he wants to vote a different way, or inviting people to the White House who, are going to have a vote in terms of the Electoral College. So there's some really wackadoodle stuff going on, and I just want to drill down on that and see if we can get some clarity on what's going on. So, we're going to sort of try to figure out what the heck is going on, but we're going to look at it from Trump's perspective, because maybe that will give us just some greater insight. All right, come on down. I have a question. And as you can see, I have my amazing, amazing wand close by. It's always close by these days. Just because of the days we're living through. Here we go. Trump and the transition. Trump and the transition. Trump and the transition. For those of you who have, for those of you who routinely watch this channel, you know that I can step into Trump's energy quite easily. So I just did that, and I have to tell you, it's almost making my head spin. That the energy is dark, and it is heavy, and it is desperate. So I'm just going to pull a little bit away from that. I'm still going to be able to read, but at the point where my head's spinning, it's like I really do need to pull back from that kind of toxicity. So come on down, let's see what we see. Okay. So this is, you already know this, but this is sort of what you need to know. He doesn't care about the rule of law. He doesn't care about justice. He doesn't care about, the rules of fair play. He doesn't care. And he has reverted back, I guess, to a behavior that he would have gotten away with a lot more before he was president, which really is that sort of grifter energy, that energy of, if you're not me, then, you're someone I can take advantage of. It is. So what's going on right now is, on the one hand, he doesn't want the next 4 years. His ego is a little bit battered and bruised because it was taken away from him. And so, like a petulant child, he's like really cranky, but he doesn't actually want it. What he wants is to build up a movement, a momentum, to drain as much money out of the coffers as he possibly can. And in order for there to be money to be drained, he has to keep those donations coming in. The way to do that is to keep everybody fired up. Because, it feels very much like Trump has known this kind of situation was coming on for a long time. And in fact, I saw one reporter talking about the fact that the strategy that is in place now was actually a strategy that Bannon was talking about in 2016 in terms of, or 15, 16, in terms of the tactics that they were going to use against Hillary Clinton had she won the election. So this is like really deceptive, really devious. It's very dark. And that's what we're all kind of immersed in right now. And that's part of the reason that you're getting this really ratcheted up anxiety feeling that's sort of starting to float everywhere because of the blatant disregard for normals and rules and the way things are done. And I guess, part of it too is just the absolutely in your face, blatant corruption. There's not even any attempt anymore to cover it up in any way, shape, or form. And, you have all of those silent Democrats saying nothing. And frankly, you have I meant Republicans, all of those Republicans not saying anything, but frankly, you also have the Democrats not saying a whole heck of a lot. If this was going on and the roles were reversed, our TVs, our media would be breaking apart and shattering for the Republicans yelling and screaming about dirty tactics and all of that. It's really time for the Democrats to kick it up a little bit of a notch. I very much understand the feeling that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want to bring unity back to the country, and I get that, and that sounds reasonable to me. But this isn't the time. On the one hand, people are saying that part of the reason that Biden is talking about sort of not going after Trump is they're kind of wondering if maybe that's not actually a strategy to, kind of lull Trump into that sense of, okay, well, maybe it'll be safe if I go. And I don't think that Biden would ever send his Justice Department after Trump. But that doesn't mean that the Justice Department, as an individual agency, like it's supposed to be, wouldn't find a few things that need to be investigated. So that sort of energy is up in the air, but it feels very much like part of the reason that Trump is starting to, again, take up all of the oxygen is because the Democrats aren't taking up enough of it, frankly. So so this is the thing, right? He doesn't want the presidency. He just wants the abundance that comes from it. And make no mistake, I don't believe for one second that he is going to, create some sort of a media phenomenon or anything else, because unless it's somebody else's money exclusively and he just slaps his name on it, there isn't going to be a deal. So I guess we'll see what red donor thinks it's maybe a great idea to yet continue with the whole misinformation campaign and the conspiracy theories. And God knows, I'm sure there might be a few of them out there. So what's going on behind the scenes feels, as I said, it's incredibly heavy and dark. It is so corrupt. It is so manipulative. And because of that sense of desperation, honestly, that just permeates everything, it really does feel like when it comes right down to it, all of their behavior, all of their theatrics really are going to continue to come across as frankly juvenile and childish and completely without merit. That doesn't matter, though, to the Trump Republicans because they don't care. And I think that's one of the things that the election has taught us that we're really going to have to grapple with just as a society, is that there is this massive segment of the American population who doesn't care. Not if it's true, not if it's scientific, not if people are completely corrupt. They just want to feel empowered. And whoever is going to tell them that because your skin color is correct, You're right. You're powerful. You call the shots. So I think that that is something that really is going to have to be taken a look at and examined. But any attempts, and all the attempts, frankly, that he is making to try to steal this election, ultimately it's not going to work for him. So why does he do it? Oh, what a big surprise. He does it because of the money. He does it because on his way out the door, he can just do every possible thing he can to destroy every possible thing that is American, because that was what rejected him. And so it's about keeping the base fired up and getting that money in. It's about, keeping them fired up. And this is the thing, he doesn't care about the base. Like, he just doesn't. It's always a transactional relationship. If I get them whipped up, how much money will I make? It's as simple as that. Do I care what I whip them up about? Not for a second. Do I care if it's true? Even less than a second. Okay, so it feels very much as if there's going to be increased pressure on some of those Republicans who are really, really trying to slam up walls so that the transition doesn't go forward, and so these electoral votes get kind of counted funny or wonky or disqualified. I just don't see it being successful. But I said, and I wasn't the only one who talked about the time between the election and the time between the inauguration being among the most dangerous in terms of Trump's behavior. Certainly, speaking for myself, I think what I missed was I didn't realize that his focus would be on the United States itself. I felt that a lot of his attention and focus would be, sort of overseas or outside of the country as he tried to, gain favor there. And that may still well be going on behind the scenes, and we just don't know about it yet. But I wasn't prepared for this sort of unbelievable continual attack on the country itself domestically. And ultimately, that is going to be what brings him down. This Emily Murphy, I think ultimately she's going to do the right thing. She's going to declare the victory where the victory needs and supposed to and should be and must be declared. But she's positioning herself. She's being very strategic about it. And honestly, she doesn't mind the attention. And she, again, reminds me of one of those sort of petulant Republicans who they've gotten to a place now where any attention is good attention. It doesn't matter if they're being completely vilified. What is that? As long as you spell my name right. So there's some of that sort of ego stuff going on with her. And Trump is right behind it. Make absolutely no question. Do not doubt this. He is manipulating the strings behind the scenes, I think actually more than we realize. And this is the thing, right? Everybody knows that this sort of sue everybody in sight strategy, that he can only have hair dye dripping Giuliani presenting to the courts because it's so ridiculous. He's behind all of this crazy nonsense. But I think what I'm energetically picking up here is he's actually more hands-on than we think. And beyond that, his handlers, and I'm talking about his immediate family and a few of the very trusted inner circle, they also are really, really pushing behind the scenes because they're trying to keep him calm. It is so sad. It is incredibly sad that you have a country that is literally, the balance of this country is hanging on the temperament of a 70-however-year-old toddler. It's ridiculous. And everybody has to pacify him and distract him because reality is just too harsh. It's really sad, and the degree to which this is going on is significant. But this is the thing. Things are going to start moving forward. I know that there's some talk about dragging this into December, and a few places may or may not. But ultimately, it's all meaningless and irrelevant. What it's doing is creating an environment where it's going to be a difficult transition for the Biden team. And trust me, there are things going on behind the scenes that are a little bit more quiet, but they're getting a significant amount of information while at the same time publicly protesting that they don't have it all. And that's absolutely accurate. They do not have it all. And the thing is they can't allow this kind of behavior to become the norm. Because that's just, again, another slippery slope into those kind of banana republic countries that you all, lectured about. So there's, there has to be a pullback, and, so there will be, but the transition is, this is the thing, it's injured. I don't see it, kind of as crippled, right? It's sort of like it doesn't have a broken ankle as much as it maybe has a twisted ankle. But it feels as if ultimately they're going to be able to find the balance and push this thing forward. And once things start moving, they really are going to start moving. He's going to have a shorter transition period that is full on effective. But I think that ultimately, prior to, January 20th, he's going to be able, the team itself is going to be able to, get the bulk of what they need. And it's so interesting because, I kept on, as you all are well aware, I was absolutely convinced that your Thanksgiving was this week, was yesterday. And okay, I know it's not. But it's really interesting to me that I could not shake the feeling. I mean, literally in all areas of my life was I convinced that this week was next week. And I'm starting to wonder if maybe part of the reason I just couldn't shake that Thanksgiving thing had actually very little to do with the American holiday and had more to do with Trump's behavior around the American holiday. So let me just see if I can explore that a little bit, because it really does feel like, I know there's been a lot of talk about him going to Mar-a-Lago for Christmas and not coming home. And I, at this point anyways, I tend to concur with that. But I gotta start wondering if there's something that might not be going on while they're in Mar-a-Lago for Thanksgiving, if in fact they are. And if not, well, then maybe they're just wherever they are celebrating Thanksgiving. But it feels like it's going to be very tense. It feels like there's going to be a lot of friction. It feels like, to some degree, there's going to be some attempt to try to get him to see reality without like enraging him. It is, this is the problem. When you are trying to reason with somebody who has no morals and is completely corrupt, you don't have a lot of leverage. Because you can't appeal to their better angels because they don't have any. You can't appeal to their sense of decency because they don't have any. You can't shame them. You can't embarrass them. You can't much of anything. And so it really does give them a lot of power. And that is what we are seeing displayed right now, is that he is a force that is almost uncontainable because there are no constraints. You can't figure out anything that will constrain him, short of literally, I don't know, like an aneurysm in the brain or something. I mean, he is just like a whirlwind, right? Just like a tornado. And he is absolutely caught up in manipulating and micromanaging and being on top of every single little thing. And as you know, it keeps getting worse and it keeps getting worse because more lawsuits are going to have to be dropped. More of them are going to be flat rejected by the courts. They're not going to make any headway. And so now it feels like in the next little bit, there's going to be a lot of talk of sort of manipulating the Electoral College. I don't see that ultimately working, but what it does is it gets everybody agitated. So the people who voted for Biden and want this craziness to stop, they're agitated because it feels like their win is threatened. Trump people are convinced that the election was stolen from them, and he keeps agitating, and so they keep staying whipped up and they keep giving him money. I mean, you can see the circle, right? It's not rocket science here. But it feels like in the coming week, so again, I'm focusing on Thanksgiving. It feels like there's going to be something significant that takes place right around, the Thursday or the Friday. It feels as if something's going to either surface or break loose or snap. And from that point, it feels like there's going to be a little bit better forward movement because the way it is now, the tension is so tight between just between two really opposite sides. Like one, this concept that you have managed to hold on to for 240 whatever years of this smooth transition to power, and then this wrecking ball. And that tension is getting tighter and tighter, and more Republicans, albeit slowly and quietly, are starting to say, whoa, back up. You're really going a bridge too far here. So it feels like ultimately, it's going to be okay. And don't forget, just for those of you who might have forgotten, let me find it. Never mind. The sword is my Biden card. The Queen of Swords is my Harris card. And the Lover's card is my card for their administration. So, ultimately they get the power. Ultimately, it turns out the way it should. It's in their favor. But it's going to be a bit of a challenge, and hopefully people will figure out that you can't just say, okay, well, this was an aberration, and so we're just going to quietly pretend this never happened. That's not going to work. There really does need to be this sense of we need to close some of those loopholes. We need to make it so that this never, ever happens again. Because what you don't condemn as unacceptable becomes acceptable. And the Democrats, I think they're really going to have to be reminded of that by the very people who vote for them. That you can't make this quietly go away because you're accepting what is unacceptable. Also, I can't help two things. I can't help but wonder how Emily Murphy might do if there was an influx of complaints, emails, comments to her about her shameful behavior. I wonder if there is actually a way to access that office. I'm not talking about a revolt here. I'm saying, what happens if there is an email campaign started? And the other question I have as COVID spirals completely beyond any realm that is comprehensible is there not a way, anybody out there who's a lawyer or who has worked with the law, is there not a way for people to get together and form a class action lawsuit against Trump and the administration? Is that not doable? I imagine on many levels it probably shouldn't be doable. I'm just asking if it actually is doable. I want to take a quick look at COVID because the numbers are scary. They're scary everywhere. Here in Canada, things are escalating very quickly. I live in Alberta, and it is escalating really crazy out here, and that's because we have a Trump wannabe as our premier. So that's a bit of an issue. He's another one who we can't take freedoms away from people because, we need to keep the economy strong. Well, I have news for him, hang on. Sorry, flying cards. So, but I want to just take a look. I know last Sunday we did that circle to sort of try to sort of eradicate and destroy the virus. Again, you're always free to do that as many times as is helpful. We will be doing, just while I'm shuffling for those who have asked, we will be doing sort of clean out the White House energy circles as it gets a little bit closer. See what we can find out about COVID, because this really interesting, this really we're at a place now where the numbers are truly scary. I mean, what is it, Dakota, who is like the epicenter right now? How can that be? How can that be? Oh, except for maybe that they have a governor who, what is that, South Dakota, who's another one who thinks her people are happy because even though they're dying, they're free. What is that? Here we go. Tell me about COVID. Tell me about COVID. Tell me about COVID. Well, I can tell you that this is going to be, as Biden keeps saying, what is that, a cold, dark winter? Because of the nonsense that's going on with the transition, it's going to be much harder to sort of hit the floor running for the Biden administration. Now, they're going to do their level best, but you have to understand that right now, this is sort of current, okay? And so what you're seeing is this continual progression, and the burden is getting heavier and heavier, and lies are being told, and there isn't that sense of like sort of just everybody even being on the same page. And more people are going to die, and more people are going to get sick, and the numbers are going to be absolutely incomprehensible. When you start hearing numbers that are literally sometimes the populations of small cities a day in terms of new cases, it's a terrifying thing. And so for right now, it really does feel as if COVID has the upper hand, because certainly in the States, look at that, you've got the Fool and the King of Pentacles coming up side by side, both of my trump cards, as he is very busy looking, out for his own interests, out to what's next on the horizon, because what's going on in his little backyard is kind of messy and stinky, and he doesn't want to have to deal with that anymore. And so that message simply is, listen, there's going to be no help coming from the Trump administration. In fact, they're going to do every single thing they can to continue to minimize it and take credit for it simultaneously. It's a fascinating thing that you've got all these Trump people who don't believe COVID is real, but they absolutely believe that Trump has cured COVID, which isn't real and doesn't exist, except somehow. Oy. Okay. You need to just buckle up a little bit, okay? This is beyond the United States. It's pretty much anybody in the northern hemisphere, particularly where the temperatures are cooling a bit. It's going to be difficult. There's going to be that need to isolate, and the reality is a lot of it is has got to be self-done, because there just needs to be that sense of being smart and taking care of your own good health and doing what you know realistically is the best way to flatten that curve and keep yourself safe. But it definitely feels like this thing is going to be settling in. It feels as if, by late spring, when it feels like more people are kind of getting online and on track, and the vaccine is at least in a little bit broader distribution, things are going to start easing. And it feels like when they ease, it's not going to be an instantaneous rapid ease, but it's going to be a steady progression, at a fair pace. So when the recovery starts, it will start, but it's a long way off. And between now and then, you have a period of time where everyone was warned there is another wave coming when the weather turns cold. And this wave has proven to be particularly aggressive and particularly hard to deal with. Because if there weren't good strategies in place, and or you have situations where people really want to believe that the economic recovery and the COVID recovery are completely separate issues, that's where you get what's going on here. So honestly, it looks like it's going to be a difficult winter. There's going to continue to be more information, more disinformation, more confusing information. But ultimately, there's going to be success, and there's going to be a recovery from this. But it's a ways off. And as you move into, the holidays, it's important to be very, very mindful of the fact that this thing has become even more aggressive than it was back in March and April. And we need to be really cognizant and aware of that. All right, so there we have it. It's Friday. Have yourself a really good weekend. Enjoy whatever it is you're going to do. And thank you for your support. All of the likes, the thumbs up, all of it. It's lovely. And for private readings, for those of you who are interested, I'm now booking early January. Mostly because I'm taking a block of time off around Christmas, because I think that's what I want to do. Okay? Until next time, take care. Be well. We'll see you really soon. Bye-bye.